to start.
Ah!
Welcome to movement number 1.
Make it go. There we go.
The basic head bob. Ready, go.
I understand. I don't know what I'm doing today either. I am completely out of sorts after a 6-day weekend. I have my morning routine, you know, prep, print, and work a shower in there. At some point, I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing now. I should be sitting at home watching like Judge Joe Mathis.
Oh, I love Judge Mathis.
Oh my God, those court shows are.
Do you know the scam behind those though?
They're real cases. They get them to drop the case and then submit to binding arbitration and say each person is going to be paid $5,000.
Yeah, and they basically somebody tried to send us to one of those when we had a salon that closed, and
Which one?
Judge Joe Mathis actually.
Really?
And what they
You didn't take them up on it?
No, what they were offering was to pay regardless
Yeah.
of whether or not we got found guilty, like whatever we were found guilty of.
They would take it out of your pay.
They weren't going to pay us. They were just going to pay the person. So like no matter
Oh,
what,
I thought.
pretty much, and they were going to provide us transportation, hotel to
What
Chicago.
if you won?
Then they would pay us out of. But we were being sued as business owners because we had some outstanding, like we owed somebody a paycheck, and these idiots literally filed a lawsuit 2 days after we closed. We were paying everybody, so instead of getting paid, they'd been paid within a week. They had to wait 2 months while we went through the court system, and then they had to wait a year as we paid them out over time. And we got
Just to be a dick?
Yeah, we got a big kick out of being late with payments. And
You should have taken up. So if you had lost though, you wouldn't get paid. You just appear on TV and then they pay the
and
the
they would have paid
judgment?
our judgment.
Oh yeah, because I mean that's I don't maybe that's the second tier. I always thought like People's Court. Maybe this went away with Judge Wapner, because you get paid whatever $5,000 for being on the show.
Sure.
And then if you win, you get paid $5,000 plus whatever you win, and if you lose, you get paid $5,000 minus.
I don't think there's as much money in TV anymore. Is where that
Whatever the judgment was, but in the scale of television episodes, where $1 million will get you a Charlie Sheen, $5,000 is nothing.
Sure.
They spend more than that on catering.
But I doubt that's there.
You should. Why wouldn't you have done that?
Fox. You know what we would have? We actually called, but we basically the court case was coming too close, and they couldn't get it all arranged in time.
But yeah, that's
because I would have totally gotten not to pay. Period. It'd been great.
Yeah, that's the goal.
And we wouldn't have come out looking stupid on TV.
Well, yeah, you would have.
No,
if you would have again, if I control the editing bay, you look how I want you to look, and if you lose, I make you look stupid.
The trick is they can't make you say anything you didn't actually say. So you say nothing, and you submit the records that say, "Hey, look, we paid every other employee in a timely fashion."
Then the judge makes you look silly.
I think the judge would have made them look silly for trying to sue us so soon, because that's what the mediator did. Basically, these girls went into mediation with us, and he said, "Well, why are all these other people paid?" Well, they didn't get paid till after we started the lawsuit. And I was like, nah, actually, we have signatures from everybody saying they were paid before the lawsuit was filed. And they're like, and on top of that, their numbers were, they were like suing us for like pain and suffering because they lost their job, when the salon closed.
Pain and suffering?
Yeah. Literally, somebody had mental distress listed, and they were suing for 4 times their paycheck.
You should just fire them for being too sexy.
Yeah. Well, apparently you can get away with that, though.
We'll talk about that in a bit. Also,
but there's more to that case than just
A couple weeks ago, I told you about the Freedom Works. These are the Tea Party AstroTurf groups.
Isn't that Glenn Beck?
Yeah, and I'm not making literally an armed insurrection to take over a firm. I've tried to explain to my friends on the right, and they get very angry when I tell them this, that all of these, what they consider, forces for good, to a man. These are. Is there a specific term for an operation just to bring in gullible suckers?
Yes, it's called Freedom Works.
Well, yeah, but.
Well, what's the left? The left's got some too that are
not really. We don't have anywhere near the infrastructure. It's been a complaint of mine.
Well, like that Air Radio, that was just to bring in suckers. I mean, their hope was
Air America Radio was an attempt to get in on this huge.
They were hoping to sell fear and hate the other direction and have it be as successful, but apparently...
Actually, you know what? They probably would have been more successful
Hippies,
if they had. The problem was they brought in a bunch of wonks and
You mean like Al Sharpton?
radio people. I actually had a chance to sit down and meet Gabe Hobbs, is the man's name. He's the same guy who pulled Glenn Beck out of the gutter in Tampa and turned him into a talk radio guy after years of being a morning shock jock. But he was brought in as a consultant at the beginning of Air America Radio. And he's got, the radio playbook, some of which is good, some of which is absolutely horrible and useless. But it's kind of the ground floor, especially if you're putting together, non-radio people. Like, here's how you do a radio show. It's a specific medium with specific, rules, and mores, if you will. And he goes to this first group meeting. And what are they? They all want to talk about Bush judges. Like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna, hold on. You got to get people to listen first. You got to get, an audience. That's step one. Before you have these grand... It was Bush judges. That was their absolute fixation when they signed on. And he's like, these people are hopeless. This is going to fail miserably. And it certainly didn't help that the finance people were all corrupt and wacky from the sounds of it. But even when they found Rachel Maddow, an Oxford scholar who was doing small-time radio somewhere in Massachusetts. And they put her on in the mornings and they put her on at night. They bounced her all over. They found 2 stars out of that. And they just moved them all over the dial, making a mess. It was absolutely
Who's the other
horrible.
star? I mean, I've heard of Rachel Maddow.
Sam Cedar.
I don't think I've
who's
heard
doing
of
this now.
So he must not have been too much of a star.
No, he was good. They paired him up with Janine Garofalo, and then they just moved them all around the time slots, and
I'm just telling you, fear and hate, and you got a winning combination.
That has worked in the talk radio world, but this goes a step beyond that because where Hannity, Beck, and Limbaugh live literally is fantasy land. It's where Obama is this left wing, dictator, and the majority of Americans believe exactly what Rush Limbaugh, and by extension you, which means you're right. I mean, they sell fantasy.
Sure, but
the guys like Freedom Works,
they
sell gullible idiots. When they made these tax day tea parties.
Well, part of what I think Air America had wrong too is they had people that were already stuck to an ideology. And what Glenn Beck's selling point was that he could really go either way. He wasn't part of the establishment. Now that's changed.
But he always I'm independent, but I always go right.
Well, no, he had some issues. I think especially at first people wouldn't have thought as right-wing issues. Now, a lot of his issues that he adopted, he brought into the right wing that weren't really political issues in general, like the gold buying.
That was after he morphed. When he first showed up on the radio scene, it was a morning zoo. It was a radio.
Yeah. I'm saying
show.
after he went for talk radio,
and that sold very well. But it wasn't, top tier, number 1, number 2.
He wasn't Mancow or Howard Stern.
Yeah, so that's where. Well, he wasn't Limbaugh. He wasn't Hannity. He wasn't even Savage.
Savage is so horrible.
But that's where he decided he's going to fill a niche, and that's where the Doom Room came in, and it was kind of hackneyed, almost end times, revivalism, and
now he's not selling end times. He's the savior.
Yeah, that meshed very well with the buy gold, buy your survival seed bank.
Sure,
and the content would be tailored to the advertiser. That kind of, he wore out his welcome at Fox, for all the talk, the stop back, and that certainly helped. The man who killed the Glenn Beck show on Fox was Roger Ailes, the head of Fox News, former Nixon White House guy. Basically walked in and said, let's figure out a way to put an end to this because his doom room stuff was getting in the way of what the actual network wanted to do. It's a lot easier to blow off Megyn Kelly when she's followed up by end times preaching.
Well, I think they're having a hard time disguising as Mormonism, too.
The Mormonism wasn't a problem.
You don't think so?
It was about 2007. It was around the time that Mitt Romney gave his, I'm a Mormon and a Mormon just believes speech. Echoes of the Kennedy, yes, I'm Catholic, but no, I won't, run the White House by papal decree. As I've told this, when I started in talk radio, if you mentioned Glenn Beck's Mormonism, he's an adult convert to the Mormon religion, you would quickly be shunted off the air. The topic would be changed. You wouldn't bring it up. Even if it was complimentary, the goal was don't bring up his Mormonism. And that's changed. He does, I'm a Mormon commercials now. And he will talk about end times revelations. Now, he doesn't say, this is a Mormon belief. He couches it, look at the events going on today. The Mormons, for their myriad of issues, are very big on, end of days preparedness. Stockpiling fits in very well with what Glenn Beck sells. So no, I don't think he's up front with the Mormon thing now. It doesn't get you hung up on to bring it up. He'll bring it up himself. He'll talk about it, which 4 or 5 years ago was unheard of.
I wonder, though, in the next year to two, we'll see that tailor out. I mean, he can't just abandon it. But I think with Mitt Romney falling out of love very quickly in the GOP, that'll be a go back to nastiness. Because I think a lot of the evangelical Christian movement jumped onto that and gave that a free pass, and now that it's not going to happen, there's no free pass given.
Yeah, what we saw with Franklin Graham, son of Billy Graham, where on his website there was an entire page dedicated to how Mormonism is a cult that magically disappeared from the internet. I would assume thanks to magic underwear. When Franklin Graham got on board Team Romney. We'll see how long it takes to come back. Because certainly in hardcore evangelical circles, Mormonism is right up there with the dirty papists and the non-believers and Satanists, Wiccans, Druids, you name it. They're in the same group.
I would actually prefer him to be atheist over Mormon.
I wonder how much
less crap to wade through.
I wonder how much of the dislike, and I would call it hate in some ways, that the Mormonism gets, is because so much, if you're, say, writing a hit Broadway musical, you can have a lot of fun at the expense of the founding of the Mormon religion. I just wonder how much of that comes from, well, if that religion started so creepily and weirdly and strangely, what's to say ours didn't? I just wonder how much of that is a defense mechanism. Because certainly it's an argument I've used. Like, we know how Scientology came to be. We know how the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints came to be. Like, we know the story. And most of us look at it, scratch our heads, and go, and people bought this? And didn't just buy this. I mean, people fought and died for Joseph Smith and the magic, the amazing magic golden tablets. And they're a mainstream religion now. You might not like them, but they are a mainstream religion.
With the Jewish faith and the Christian faith, though, it's not one event that started it, and you just have to look to that one weirdness. I mean, with the Jewish faith and Christian by default, you have 2,000 years of certain things happening and God being involved in certain different aspects of the story. I mean, certainly...
The one thing you can't take away, though, is that 2,000 years ago, Christianity was looked at as the same sort of cult.
It would have been.
That evangelicals look at Mormonism
But
now.
there's a difference here, and let me get to that in a second. But when you're looking at like the Jewish faith, you have to go back way longer than 2,000 years. And you got God's involvement in multiple different places in pretty miraculous ways. So you're buying into not just a beginning where like in the 1840s or I think is it 1800 early 1800s.
Yeah, it was the mid 1800s.
Smith found something. This is thousands of years of
well, and
God
that's
was
the point.
here and God was here.
We have a decent, if not great, kind of societal memory of the mid 1800s.
Sure.
We don't.
Well,
From 2,000
I
years
understand
ago.
that.
And there lies the difference. And if you can extrapolate, if this religion started so crazily, if Scientology started so crazily, what's to say that this myriad of other religions that, the have been lost and altered through just the haze of time. As time goes on, stories change. Play telephone.
Well, it's a logical thought process. I'm not arguing with your logic.
But when Christianity invaded Rome as a kind of boutique, chic religion
these are
for
different.
the well-off.
Christianity was different in the sense that even back then, the Jewish people would have been looking for some Messiah. And we're saying, here's the Messiah. The difference is Christianity isn't looking for anything else to happen per se.
Well, depends on the sect.
But
you have your end timers.
Yeah, but
we're
looking
your left
for
behinders.
We're looking for some kind of end time thing, perhaps. That depends on which.
As we speak right now, there are multiple, Christian broadcast networks with cameras with 24-hour feeds on where they believe Jesus will return.
Which is just absolutely silly and shows...
There's a man in Nebraska trying to breed a red heifer. That
just shows that they don't understand the Bible.
In Israel, there are folks collecting money and
to rebuild the temple. I'm aware.
But they are looking for signs.
But those aren't legitimate...
Well, who's to say?
The greater evangelical church, even the majority of us together, even ones that I would disagree with over theology, would tell you those aren't legitimate ways of bringing about. Like,
that's one of the issues with religion,
but we're looking
if you believe it,
we're looking for the return of Christ. That's universal except for a preterist reading of Revelation anyway, which is beyond you, and me for that matter. But so we're looking for a return of Christ. That's it. We're not looking for a whole nother religion to be spurned out of it, like what Mormonism would be. In fact, we actually have, Paul covers it, I think it's in Galatians, where it says, if somebody comes, even the angel of light, and declares a different gospel than what I'm teaching right now, let them be accursed.
I don't know. It sounds like a good catch-all to retain converts.
Which is pretty funny, though, because the Mormon angel that revealed Mormonism is called Moroni, which translates to the angel of light. So
again, Joseph Smith wasn't a theologian; he was a con man.
He was such a bad theologian that he specifically brought about something. Paul said, "We will curse you if you do," and he does it in exactly that.
But they're a mainstream religion now.
They kind of are. I mean, there's a lot of them, but I
would say that was a good...
Atheism isn't a mainstream religion. I mean, I would have no problem with an atheist group trying to get tax exempt status.
Bad call. It's not collecting baseball cards is my hobby. I think it's a bad framing.
Well, I understand a case. There's actually a group trying to do this, by the way. They're suing because they don't have that right. So I'm not speaking out of school. You have groups of atheists trying to create some kind of religious organization about there not being a God. And that's okay with me. I don't have a problem with that.
I shrug my shoulders at that. And certainly...
I'm not even sure how I feel about the tax-exempt status in the beginning.
With, whatever you want to call atheism, agnosticism, rationality, non-belief, it really is like herding cats. It's very hard to have a pope or some sort of
I don't know. You guys get behind Richard Dawkins pretty well.
And even he gets slagged a lot by the non-believing sect. Because, again, not everyone agrees with...
Well, we don't have a pope.
Richard Dawkins.
I mean, greater Christianity doesn't have any one main leader we can point to. Period. There's nobody that I would...
there are, groups and councils that...
Well, but they're...
decree from on high, and while they don't claim, papal infallibility... can certainly change the direction of a church.
Yeah, and see, that's poor church design.
I mean, like entire, when the Lutherans get together in Minneapolis, they can change the direction of. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds, thousands of churches.
Yeah, but you got when
under there.
When you got those, the pastors are actively involved in that, so they can't. They can only. There's only so much because. First of all, we all should be bound to Scripture. We can't change it outside the realm of Scripture. And so those guys are kind of locked in.
Interpretation of Scripture changes over time. We've talked about this.
Me and you disagree over this, though.
Yeah, but I mean, you would be seen as a wacky heretic, 1,000, 2,000 years ago. You'd be like, what is this guy?
Well, I would be outside of the. I mean,
preach it.
I would be well outside of the Catholic train of thought. But
I think most Christians would be like, well, the world's not going to be here in 2012 years, so you're obviously a demon.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we would think the same thing we do now. I have no idea when the world's going to end. I have no more reason to think
but
Christ
Jesus
is not coming back today than he is 1,000 years from now. So
but
the charge of
many of the original followers believed that the end times were here.
That's based off of your speculation. I would argue that I think they all understood when he said stuff like "I'm coming soon" and stuff like that.
Well, I mean,
that was relative in the
some
time.
of you will be alive to see.
But see,
are they still alive?
Again, I think you're interpreting what you think they would think by that. They did see God do crazy stuff because you're taking a little bit of revelation there and you're reading it in a rapture kind of language. And I don't believe in that.
I'm saying, just take the red letter people. But you'll be around to see this.
They were around to see the church get persecuted. They were around to see the temple get torn to pieces by Rome. They were around to see the
return of Jesus in the end times.
But those aren't linked. It's not. They were around to see the prophecy Jesus was talking about. That wasn't necessarily end times language. In fact, I'm saying it's not. They were around to see Nero come in and do horrible things and feed Christians to lions.
Well, Nero was what Revelations was written about.
Absolutely. But see, the people that would have interpreted what Jesus was saying with Revelation are like the rapture people, and it's called premillennial view. You have three views. Premill, which believes we're before this 1,000-year reign of Christ type thing. We have the amills, which is what I am, where we're in this time where the church is going to grow. And then you have post-mill, where we're in the reign of Christ. And I don't really see where they're coming from necessarily, but they're a lot less crazy than the pre-mill because they're not like hoping rapture and worried about tattoos on their wrist.
Well, the funny thing is that whole, kind of rapture left behind is within a generation.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
It is absolutely recent.
It's really awkward. It's an awkward belief.
But has become mainstream.
But it's become mainstream because people, kind of like what you were doing, are taking verses out of the Bible and reading them so far out of context and then going, well, this connects with this. And the Bible isn't like a big giant erector set that has pieces that connect with other pieces. It's all meant to be read in a certain frame and context. And when you take it right out of that context, which is history, because things happen in a certain place in a certain time for a certain reason, and were written to those people, when you take it out of the context of history, you can connect all kinds of crazy stuff in the Bible, and that's where you get Harold Camping.
Do.
Yeah, well, but those people are
wrong. But you
wrong.
also end up with, again, Harold Camping is seen as a loon and a wacko.
But I don't think 2,000 years ago, my understanding of Scripture would have differed a whole lot over the general church. In fact, that's why...
Oh, I think when you start going, the Gospels, I mean, that's the very first thing. People go, which ones? Thomas?
Well,
there were dozens.
They wouldn't have had. They wouldn't have picked. Again, see, we have a.
By the way, 2,000 years ago, those Gospels weren't written.
Those Gospels weren't written yet. Yeah. But you would have
those Gospels
people
were still
like I would have said.
The future.
What I would have said then is, I'm a disciple of Paul, or I'm a disciple of John, or I'm a disciple of.
Then
Thomas.
They would ask you why you're married.
No, that's not necessarily true because I wouldn't be set up as a leader, and Paul and Timothy and Titus all set up that you can be married and be a leader. In fact, Paul was married, and you can only have one wife. It would have ended polygamy back then. I couldn't have had multiple wives. I don't now. I wouldn't want them. I don't understand that.
Plus,
lifestyle.
they would be really weirded out at you eating shellfish.
They not necessarily, because see, Paul went out to the Gentiles, and his whole thing was, you're Gentiles, you're not bound to that. And I would be a Gentile. I have no Jewish roots whatsoever, so they wouldn't be weirded out with that. You know, they probably
Plus,
would.
they would look at you weird for having such light skin.
They would probably that would be the big thing, is we've changed enough in such a short amount of time as
Oh,
people.
their pasty face.
That I'm pretty pale faced, and that I would have issues, and then of course my ink and stuff like that would be.
You'd probably be put to death as.
No, I would have been treated as a pagan.
Demon.
Pagans came over, and you come over as you are. So it is what it is. There would have been tattooed people at that time who had been part of this, found God, and had moved over to that.
Yeah, but not that intricate or something. They would look at you and.
I'm extreme in any culture, though. I'm
to
extreme
death.
in today's culture.
Not really.
You'd be surprised how many, even of the tattooed people, I generally per tattoos, have better tattoos and more than most of the tattooed people. I mean, you got guys like Frankie Mink that would mirror me in the sense we have about the same, but mine are newer and
None
a
of
little
yours
fresher.
were ever swastika.
Yeah, and I don't have any hate tattoos.
Gerbils.
The worst thing I have is I have no quarter given in a ship in a bottle type thing, which means there's no mercy shown. And that's the most hateful thing I have on my body. So
Seems kind of unchristian.
it's actually a pirate thing, and it was kind of distinctly the world doesn't give you mercy type thing. Like if you want mercy from this world, good luck. So it isn't necessarily meant to be Christian, but it's not anti-Christian.
I'd call it conservative.
Yeah.
There you go. That's maybe the most Republican thing about you.
I am pretty conservative.
All right, rewind to because this story is too great. A couple weeks ago, I told you about infighting at Freedom Works, and when the story broke, I'm like, it's obviously about money. A couple days later, turns out it's about money. Again, it's not about effectiveness. It's not about really role of the organization.
Is Freedom Works where Jim DeMint went? Is that right?
No, that's the Heritage Foundation.
Okay, I'm getting those. The Heritage is Hannity, right?
Heritage Foundation, yeah, spends a lot of money with Hannity
Okay.
and Limbaugh as kind of a prop up. This is that infrastructure.
I don't listen to talk radio since I work in it now.
But they're a right wing think tank. If you're a Republican congressman who is going to, advocate that, Project Soylent Green as a way to deal with poverty, odds are it's going to be based on a Heritage Foundation, report. And that they're going to do the homework for you. And you'll probably even present it at the Heritage Foundation. It is incubator for really horrible things. No, this is even weirder. Freedom Works is a group started by Dick Armey. He was the former Republican House.
Is that not the
majority.
greatest name ever for a Republican, though? What's your name?
If you're
Dick
gonna
Army.
If you're gonna get busy teabagging, you're gonna need a Dick Armey. Is, by the way it's put.
They were debating whether to call him like Rich or whatever. And they're like, no, Dick Army. That's amazing.
Dick. He noticed that. The fun thing is, Dick Armey might not even be he's the weirdest guy, but not even be the bad guy in this story. Turns out he shows up at Freedom Works looking for Matt Kibbe, who is kind of the other co-runner of this AstroTurf group. And Kibbe had used Freedom Works people to write one of those, awful conservative books that groups like the Heritage Foundation or WND or Sarah Pack buy the tanker full to kind of circulate money through the right wing sphere. But Dick Armey doesn't just show up to perch. He brings his wife, and I'm not kidding, an armed gunman. He showed up with a gun holstered on his way and told people to get out. I mean, it was literally an armed insurrection. And for about a week, it worked. Army ran Kibbe and his little group out of Freedom Works and tried to, run the joint. And by all accounts, did it very poorly, a little out of his depth. I know Republicans actually running things tends to cause problems, but in this case, it's true. According to the Washington Post, it was a near meltdown. According to 24 current and past associates, most of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity, to talk freely. What finally ended the armed insurrection was a man by the name of Richard Stevenson, who you probably don't know, but you've seen. He was the creator of those Cancer Centers for America. Is that what they're called? Cancer Treatment Centers of America. They advertise all the time. They're a for-profit hospital that specializes in cancer care. He threatened to withhold money. And that is the quickest way to make one of these organizations do your bidding. So he threatened to cut off the $12 million or so that he was funneling into this group. So to bring the folks who were grifting, using the group to make money for themselves, to bring them back into power, that's how Dick Armey ended up with an $8 million severance to end his literally armed insurrection against Freedom Works.
I got some guns. Let's go down there and do this.
I was going to say, if you showed up at a workplace with weapons telling people to leave, what do you think would happen to you?
Well, I just want let's go down there. Maybe we can scrounge up $1 million or $2 million. I'll be happy. I'll split it with you. You get to be the armed guard.
If I was smart, I would get totally on the right-wing gravy train. If I was a smarter, more business-savvy person, because there almost is no failing. If you do your time, you put up, some service. Just a couple examples locally. Matt Strawn, who took the fall for the caucuses gone wrong, was immediately picked up by GoPac. And it doesn't even have to be someone really that prominent. I think by now everyone should know the story of Isaiah McGee. He was Governor Branstad's choice to lead the Civil Rights Division. And came in, because again, you're kind of put in the job, and then you have to be confirmed by the state Senate, and usually it's a no-brainer, right? Even Swati Dandekar can get past the Senate, but he came in and caused such a train wreck. People were leaving. It issued a gag order to workers. Was basically such a mess. He was one of the few Branstad appointees that was not confirmed by the Senate. So did he go back to what he was doing beforehand, which I think was consulting work? Well, no. Branstad found him an $80,000 a year consulting job. Yeah, if I was smart. And Democrats, again, do this to a degree, but certainly not as well. If I was smart, I would be a right-wing conservative wacko. And if I didn't believe it. And I think there are a number of right-wing blowhards on the radio that really don't believe it. But just as, again, if I'm playing Hamlet, I don't actually believe I'm the Prince of Denmark, but I can play the role. If you are an actor and you do believe you're the Prince of Denmark, there's probably resources available to help you. But they're acting out a role. and some do it better than others. The problem is way too many people take what they're saying as gospel truth. Again, ultimately, I don't think groups like FreedomWorks have the sway and the influence that even many on the left purport. When the tax day tea parties or Fox News tax day tea parties first popped up, and the right was all over these things in large crowds. You had a number of very upset conservatives who had just seen 2 wave elections go against their side. They were kind of rudderless. They lacked influence, and maybe, at a deeper level, they had been told multiple times now, America ain't buying what you're selling. These political views, again, you hold as just gospel truths, have been rejected multiple times by the American people. So this was an angry mass looking for direction. Well, that sounds like a money-making opportunity. It's amazing how many of these Tea Party for-profit groups popped up, in addition to the groups like FreedomWorks. And the funny thing was, after, again, all these large tax day tea parties, and misspelled signs, and get your government hands off my Medicare.
The flag, the Gadsden flag.
Yeah, it's, again, maybe the best symbol of these. Don't tread on me. Tread on anyone else. I don't care who you tread on as long as you don't tread on me. We have, the emails and the memos sent by groups like FreedomWorks to, say, Blue Cross Blue Shield, saying, look at what we did here. We can fire these people up and send them to town hall meetings to oppose this Obamacare legislation you might not like. All for a small fee, of course. And they were very effective in getting these useful idiots. And I know that's intentionally kind of inflammatory term, but rubes, marks, dupes, I don't think there's a term that's not offensive to strap on their AR-15s and go meet their member of Congress and yell weird things at them. Now, ultimately, the law passed in spite of these kooks. So if I'm well, Mark, maybe I want a refund. But again, I've tried to point this out for years. Is when I bring up the fact that like Sarah Pack spent more on copies of Sarah Palin books than giving to candidates. I'm not going to donate my circle of friends is not going to give money to Sarah Pack or FreedomWorks, or when Glenn Beck was asking for you to send money to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, a group made up of some of the largest corporations in the history of mankind, because IBM or the Koch brothers need your $10. They're not ripping me off. They're not and pimping me out. It's you. It's our friends on the right. Yet 60 Minutes right doesn't hate you because they point out that your chiropractor is a kook who can't actually cure cirrhosis of the liver. All right, you're not being attacked by people pointing this out. All right, we're trying to open your eyes. I am all about hey, you want to get together and be an activist. All right, even if their causes I disagree with. But when I see the grifters like this, and I go, when you send money to FreedomWorks because Glenn Beck said so, all right, I don't know what proportion of your money went to pay the $8 million they gave Dick Armey for ending his armed insurrection. But that's where your money's going. When you donate to Sarah PAC, you're not helping restore the republic by getting Sarah, Barracuda to run for president. You're paying for her wardrobe. You're paying for her political action committee to buy copies of her book that pays royalties to Sarah Palin. And you might get a copy of that book for a penny if you donate $50 or whatever. I mean, they're ripping you off. Not me, not my friends, not my social circle. Name some of my family members, but not me. I don't point this out for my own benefit because I know not to give the snake oil man money. I never played 3-card Monte on the street. And I only buy lottery tickets if it's over $150, $200 million. But at least I know I'm buying suckers' odds at that point. Hopefully people learn this. If you want to give to Freedom Works in spite of this, go right ahead. It's your money, but at least know where it's going. They're ripping you off. They see you as dupes, marks, to be led. Go back to the Glenn Beck discussion. Like whether or not gold is a good investment, and I got to admit, it's the only commodity I've ever seen. Prices are an all-time high. You better buy now. Again, maybe it's my public West Des Moines community schooling.
It's why I haven't bought gold.
I always thought, when it was buy low, sell high, right? Isn't this kind of the basics?
Well, the people that already bought low need you to continue to buy.
And this is where bubbles come from. When they run out of suckers to keep buying.
Because somebody's divesting a bunch of gold somewhere because it just doesn't.
Someone's got to sell it to you.
I mean.
And odds are that person probably knows a little more about the market than you do. Or maybe has just opened, study on the history of gold prices. We saw them shoot up in the late 70s, 1980. And as soon as the economy recovered, back down to the low level they stayed at.
Yeah.
For 20 plus.
Now the nice thing about gold is, for whatever reason, as a world, we seem to trade off of its value. So if you have some,
if it gets to the point where
like
you
stock.
need gold gold isn't going to do you any good.
Well,
you can't eat your gold.
I agree, but if you got to the point where let's not talk about catastrophic Mayan apocalypse because that's over now. But
thank the Jello people apparently for that one.
But we do have. You can track that there is some intrinsic value in gold for whatever reason.
There really isn't, though, other than in high-end electronics where it actually holds some value. It's just a shiny bauble. But that's even besides.
But the world has used it for thousands of years as a trading post, and
we also used women for thousands of years.
And I would argue that is significantly less valuable than a chunk of gold sometimes.
Well, certainly gold is less nagging. But you can't talk gold into a weekend marathon of Battlestar Galactica.
You
like
can.
I did, and I won the weekend.
But actually, you probably could, because if you had a golden copy of your woman sitting next to you, okay? Think about this. She wouldn't interrupt it. You would never have to stop it, so she had to go pee. At no point when you went to the kitchen to get your beverage of choice would you have to bring it back one.
It would be as warm, but
in
a temperature,
and actually,
not emotionally,
and actually, it would hold heat. as well. So at some point, it would be very cozy.
I don't know.
This is
right up there with the golden movie.
I'm starting to think that maybe we're on to something here.
The whole point, though, is Glenn Beck ain't pushing gold because he believes that you need to.
No, he's pushing gold because he's
not even pushing gold, by the way. He's pushing
a gold company,
line,
which is pushing gold.
Who sells, like you buy, I don't know,
certificates that say you own.
Well,
gold.
no, you're buying coins. And they assign a value to the minting, which is basically you're buying, say, $400 worth of gold.
Yeah.
Or you're going to buy an $800 coin, the numeric value numismatic. I don't know what the term is. I'm not a dupe
Well,
like
and
that.
Goldline will sell bullion too. I mean, you can.
Well,
buy...
they've gotten in trouble in a couple of states for pushing, like, oh, you want to buy bullion? That's nice. You need to buy these coins.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, but you really want to buy.
They've also gotten in trouble. I don't know if it's Goldline, but some gold companies have gotten in trouble for selling you gold and then offering to store it in their secure vault for you, and then not actually having it.
Yeah, we'll get it for you if you demand it, but we're just...
Yeah, I mean, we got gold in our vault. It's not necessarily yours, but I guess if you
well, again, it attracts that kind of...
it's a scary thought.
But they're actually savvy investors in commodities, all right? But the dude, all right, asking for a pamphlet off the Glenn Beck program is not one of them. Commodities prices, you want to make a lot of money quickly or lose a lot of money quickly, commodities is the place to be. Which actually it does inflict a lot on the economy of Iowa. Ask farmers who live and die by the price of corn and soybeans. But one of the things that's not getting talked about, there is no plan B. Dan, are you familiar with the upcoming milk cliff?
I gave up dairy. Am I screwed? If I want to go back to my dairy drink?
Is lactose intolerance considered hate speech? And I just bought...
You know what?
I've
been
cereal
in a bathroom after somebody was lactose intolerant, and I would say that's pretty hateful.
Everything I need to know about lactose intolerance I learned from the Big Bang Theory. As many people in Iowa, but not enough, are aware, we don't have a farm bill. Our current farm bill expired in September. Now the Senate passed one, but of course the House. We need I don't know. Is there a picture of a man with his head up his own? That's the House of Representatives. Can't pass a farm bill, mostly because again, there is no really Republican Party at work these days. It is a bunch of little fiefdoms. We saw this with the Plan B negotiations, where this was John Boehner's, cunning stunt to pass the buck for the fiscal cliff and throw it in Obama's desk, and couldn't even get it passed. Never even came up for a vote in the House because he knew he didn't have the votes. Plan B. Between Plan B failing and Mitch McConnell having to filibuster his own bill to keep it from passing, there is no Republican consensus. It's a bunch of infighting. Basically, it's political Somalia. One of the effects of this is we don't have a farm bill passed. Now, that's going to lead to all sorts of interesting things as we go on, but maybe the first sign, and this is going to happen mid to late January, unless something changes very quickly, we are going to hit the milk cliff. Since the farm bill died, starting January 1st, the law will revert to the last permanent farm bill. We don't write permanent farm bills anymore. We write them for a year, 5 years, 10 years, but they're set to sunset a specific period. The last permanent farm bill we had was 1949. And we go back to those rules, one of which requires the government to buy dairy products at approximately twice the current market rate paying now. Again, this was set back post-World War II, $40 per hundredweight. To make sure, again, you want the gold milk to not be 10 cents, a gallon, or you're going to put a lot of cows out of work. Which, from what I gather, they wouldn't. I guess they actually like being milked. I guess it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, they have to be milked, otherwise it'll get all infected and crap.
So, the price of milk is going to double. Now, there's obviously supply in the chain starting January 1st, but at that point, Secretary Vilsack's hands are tied. He said, I don't want this to happen, but I have to follow the law, which means the government starts buying milk at twice the price it's going for now, which is going to drive up the price for everyone else. And we're already drinking less milk, not just because there's something called almond milk out there, which I don't know how, it's a really tiny milker, but over the past 20 or 30 years, we've consumed less milk. And not only, by the way, is your gallon of milk going to shoot up to $6, $7, $8 a gallon, depending on where you're buying it. Look at how many products, not just your cheeses, use it as well. That sucked to be Hershey's. But these are the real life implications of just, the kookery. And the holdup seems to be in the House, where Republicans are demanding food stamp cuts. Food stamps, or SNAP, is a Department of Agriculture program. And while, yes, it has altruistic purposes, it is also very important for continuing demand. Again, we're not stupid. They don't give you unemployment benefits, all right, out of the goodness of their heart. They want you to keep spending money in your community. We are a demand-based economy, and the amount of tax cuts for job creators is going to change that. So it keeps up demand, adds to demand. People who would spend, $70 on food, whatever, in a week will spend, $90, and there's a direct benefit to that. So starting January 1st, the government has to buy large amounts of milk at a very high price. That is going to drive up the market for the rest of us, because Republicans can't pull their head out of their ass. I don't think there's no nicer way of putting that. And again, Republicans can't even get their own bills passed. While we were away, thanks to the blizzard, mentioned Plan B before. This was John Boehner's plan to make some, obligatory cuts to appease the wingnuts, and then allow the Bush tax cuts to only expire for those making $1 million or more in a year. And since we never saw the final bill come up for a vote, we'll never know, but rumor has it there might have also been a promise not to hold the debt ceiling hostage, not to threaten the full faith and credit of the United States for political gain. This was going to be John Boehner's masterstroke. And it makes absolute sense. This might be a little inside for most people, but just so you understand, again, why things work the way they do. The goal was to get even some of these, vehement anti-tax Grover Norquist disciple Republicans to vote just for some tax increase, any. Because Plan B obviously was going nowhere. It wasn't going to get voted on in the Senate at all, let alone end up on the president's desk. But just get them on the record as, hey, we're willing to raise taxes. Throw the balls in your court. Throw that on the president's desk. Then use that as leverage to work on a grand bargain. Republicans are smart enough. And careful, smart. Like a dog isn't necessarily smart, but he's smart enough not to, eat fire. So smart enough. Republicans are smart enough to know that to achieve their ultimate goal of making significant cuts to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, etc., they need a Democrat to do it. Right? It's kind of like the plot to Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Right? We have to get the Autobots to start up Sentinel Prime so we can finish our dastardly plan. Spoilers, I don't want to ruin the movie for you.
Just ruined it.
Michael Bay ruined the movie far before I ever got to it. But
I like the Transformers. I don't know why you keep... I mean,
I love the Transformers, but those movies are awful.
You know what? I just wanted to see them...
Aside from, like, the racism and...
What racism?
They
got that one guy, Tyrese or whatever's in there. How can they be racist? They got a black guy. I don't understand.
They have a lot of black friends, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying there's at least a black guy in the movie. There's a Jewish guy. He's crazy.
The sexism. Bad movies, bad director.
There is a lot of I wish they could have taken that out. Like, Megan Fox is really good looking, except she's got those toe thumbs, which are kind of disturbing all on their own.
Not familiar with toe thumbs.
Hey, you've never seen a toe thumb? Search Megan Fox toe thumbs. She has her thumbs look like.
I'm very
your
careful
big toe.
about what I search for on the internet.
Yeah,
you can go really wrong places.
This isn't like a lemon party thing. This is just a picture of her thumbs.
Because I just wanted to see what kind of
anywhere.
cup those two girls had, and that ruined my afternoon.
No, this is just her thumbs look like your big toe. They're disturbing. But she's very pretty. But my kids wanted to see that movie, and that's a movie that theoretically kids should be able to see some giant. Yeah, can't.
Show them the 1986 version.
You know what? We tried to watch.
That was aimed at 10-year-olds, and it killed off my entire toy collection very gruesomely.
You know,
I went to a theater to see that, and I still carry the scar.
We re-rented one of the original Transformers. You know, they cuss in some of those, depending on which version.
They say the S word.
Yeah.
In one when Unicron attacks Moonbase 2. If you want to talk about.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Like, we were watching it, and we're like, what did he just say?
What are we going to do now?
We complained to Family Video.
What?
Yeah, because we didn't know that was in there. They had that in a children's section.
It was the 80s, man.
But that's still not cool. I don't want my
You
kids
could still give out home-baked Halloween goodies.
No, not in the 80s. That's when all the
That's
stores...
why we were all paranoid, but you could still do it.
Like, we always had the
Everyone's
lady
going
at
to
the
put
end of the
syringes
street.
and razors in their popcorn balls.
Yeah, so my parents would never let me eat those.
Now, hold on. No one ate them. You could still give them away, but they would end up in your gutters and thrown at your windows.
You know who was always the cool person is the full-size candy bar. There's one in every neighborhood.
Yeah, but usually only one.
Yeah, and you know that's the one you like try to circle around and turn your mask the other direction and see.
Yeah, but that's just, I don't know, it's a lot of work. You could make up for it in volume. But yeah, full-size candy bar person was cool, unless they had something awful like Mounds or Butterfinger or something. They never had like Snickers.
Butterfingers are great.
Nestle Crunch.
That's my favorite candy bar.
Oh, those are nasty.
Butterfinger is the candy bar that keeps giving because it packs up in your teeth, and you can taste that Butterfingery goodness for a good hour.
No, thank you. Anyway, real quick, a couple things. Again, Republicans are smart enough to know that a Democrat can only unlock the key to Social Security. And they have, and this is a rarity, a president who is open and willing to do that. We saw with the first grand bargain negotiations that Republicans were too stupid to take a yes on. So the goal was to push it on Obama's desk and use that pressure for the grand bargain. And they couldn't even get that done. And there's some talk that perhaps John Boehner is done as Speaker of the House. Just really quick, because this needs to be mentioned again for a specific reason. We saw Webster, New York. William Spengler, who had previously spent 17 years in prison for manslaughter. It was a murder trial, but to spare the family the trial, he pled to manslaughter. Spent 17 years in prison, and then kind of just retired to Webster, New York. Set his home on fire, and for the express purpose of luring firefighters to his home so that he could shoot them. Yes, like the recent school shooting, Sandy Hook Elementary. A Bushmaster was involved. I'm sorry. Bushmaster should be for intimate, feminine grooming purposes. That is the only reason anyone should own something like this. I'm sorry, but something very telling, because he left, I don't know, it's not a surprise, a weird, rambling note. Said, I still have to get ready to see how much of the neighborhood I can burn down and do what I like doing best, killing people. Just one thing to point out as we deal with the NRA press conference last week that literally was still bringing up natural-born killers, Grand Theft Auto, and American Psycho. Like, they're giving the same speech they gave in 2001. They just dust it off, complete with the same out-of-date cultural references. And this is what came to my mind. But doing what I do best, or what I like doing best, killing people. And he didn't choose a knife, poisoned school food, fertilizer truck bomb, a car, stairwell, any of the other kind of distractions the right wing brings up. He chose, semi-automatic weapons. Because if you're going to do what you like doing best, you're probably going to pick the best tool for the job. So this well-regulated militia decided to arm himself and see how many firefighters he could take out. And I got admit, for someone who's spent most of his life agnostic towards guns, I'm losing my non-religion. The sad thing is, if this hadn't come in the wake of such a large tragedy, it probably would be, kind of minor news you'd read on FARC. The same way that, pre-Sandy Hook, someone could go shoot up a Sikh temple and no one really pays attention. And hopefully something good can come out of this long term. And an addendum, by the way, if you're like me and you ran into this one, family members, that guy that went nuts with a knife in the Chinese school, not one fatality. I'd have to think, if you ask the parents at Sandy Hook Elementary, would you take some scars on your kid to have him alive? I think they'd take that deal. All right, email me, radiobradshaw@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/radiobradshaw. Or just go to thebradshawshow.com for almost all of your Bradshaw needs. www.thebradshawshow.com. It's got a link to archives, contact info. It's all there. So we'll reconvene tomorrow at 1:30 here on Webcast One Live for The Bradshaw Show. Thanks for watching. I will see you tomorrow.